When waiting hurts too much. The story of Hagar, Sarah, and Abraham. There is a silent pain that eats away from within. A pain that doesn't scream, but whispers every day, maybe God has forgotten you. This is the story of three people. Three hearts. Three different pains. And a God who sees everything. Today we will talk about Sarah, the wife who waited decades for a promise. About Abraham, the man who tried to help God. And about Hagar, the servant who discovered that God sees even the invisible. The promise that seemed impossible. God had made a promise to Abraham. A gigantic, impossible, extraordinary promise. Look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. So shall your offspring be. Abraham was 75 years old. Sarah was 65. And they had no children. But they believed. They left everything behind. They left their land, their relatives, their father's house. Because when God promises, we go. And then the waiting began. 1 year passed. 2 years. 5 years. 10 years. Sarah looked at the sky every night, counted the stars, and cried in silence. Because her womb remained empty. Her arms remained without a child. Her house remained without the laughter of a child. How long, Lord? The promise was there, shining like the stars in the sky, but it seemed so distant, so impossible. When faith grows weary. 10 years had passed since they left Haran. 10 long years of waiting. Sarah was now 75 years old. Abraham, 85. And nothing had changed. That's when something broke inside Sarah. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't lack of faith. It was exhaustion. The waiting had hurt too much. The Lord has kept me from having children, she said to Abraham. And then she presented her solution. Go, sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Hagar, the Egyptian servant. Young. Capable of bearing children. It seemed reasonable. It seemed logical. It was even cultural at that time. But it was Sarah's plan, not God's plan. And Abraham? He agreed. Without questioning. Without seeking God. Without waiting. Sometimes, when waiting hurts too much, we try to help God. We try to make it happen. We create an Ishmael when God promised an Isaac. The price of impatience. Hagar had no choice. She was a servant. She had no voice. She had no rights. One night, she was taken to Abraham's tent. And she conceived. When Hagar discovered she was pregnant, something changed. Suddenly, she had something Sarah didn't have. A child growing in her womb. The continuation of Abraham's lineage. And she began to despise Sarah. Imagine the scene. The servant who had always been invisible now walked with her head held high. Touched her belly with pride. Looked at Sarah with contempt. And Sarah? Sarah looked at that growing belly and felt a mixture of regret, anger and pain. This is the fruit of my own decision, she thought. I brought my rival into my own home. Abraham's house, which should have been blessed, became a battlefield. 2 women. 1 man. And a child who hadn't even been born yet was already at the center of a storm. When Plan B explodes. The tension was unbearable. Sarah went to Abraham furious. The wrong I am suffering is your fault. I put my servant in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. Abraham, as many men do in conflicts they helped create, withdrew. Your servant is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think best. And Sarah did. She mistreated Hagar, humiliated her, made her life so unbearable that Hagar made the most desperate decision a pregnant woman can make. She fled. Pregnant, alone, without resources, Hagar ran to the desert. She preferred the possibility of dying free than continuing to live as a mistreated slave. There she was, rejected, used, discarded. An Egyptian servant who didn't even have her own name to many. Just Sarah's servant. The God who sees. Hagar was sitting near a spring of water in the desert. Crying. Lost. Without hope. And then something extraordinary happened. The angel of the Lord found her. It wasn't Sarah who looked for her. It wasn't Abraham who went after her. It was God. Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going? For the first time in the entire narrative, someone called her by name. Hagar. Not the servant. Not the Egyptian. Hagar. She was seen. She was known. She mattered. "I'm running away from my mistress Sarah," she responded, with a broken voice. And then God did something surprising. He didn't free her from servitude. He didn't remove her from that difficult situation. But he gave her something much greater, a promise. "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." The rejected servant would also receive countless descendants. The son she carried would be the father of a great nation. God saw Hagar. And not only did he see, he acted. And Hagar, with tears in her eyes, gave God a name that no one had given before, El Roi, the God who sees me. "You are the God who sees me," she said, amazed. "Have I now seen the one who sees me?" She returned to Abraham's house. Not because the situation had changed, but because she had found the one who saw her. The birth of Ishmael. Hagar gave birth to a son, and Abraham gave him the name Ishmael, God hears. Abraham was 86 years old when Ishmael was born, and for 13 years, he believed that this was the son of the promise. He loved Ishmael. He invested in him. He dreamed about him. This is the heir God promised, he thought. But Ishmael was the son of human planning, not of the divine plan. He was the result of impatience, not of the promise. And God, in his mercy, waited. He waited until it was impossible. He waited until there was no doubt about who would be the author of the miracle. When God finally acts. Abraham was 99 years old. Sarah was 89. God appeared again and renewed the promise. "Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son." Sarah laughed. She laughed with disbelief, with irony, with impossibility. "Will I have this pleasure after I am worn out, and my Lord is old?" But God asked, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And it happened. After 25 years of waiting. After mistakes and successes. After Hagar and Ishmael. Finally, Sarah conceived. Isaac was born. The son of the promise. The son of the miracle. The son of waiting. Sarah, who had laughed with disbelief, now laughed with joy. "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." The waiting was over. The promise was fulfilled. When the promise creates division. During Isaac's weaning feast, Sarah saw Ishmael mocking. And all the old pain returned. All the jealousy. All the fear. "This boy, the son of this servant, will not be heir with my son Isaac." Sarah demanded that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. This deeply distressed Abraham. Ishmael was his son. He loved him. How could he cast him out? But God said, "Do not be distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. But I will also make the son of the slave into a nation." And so, for the second time, Hagar went to the desert. But this time she was not alone. She took with her Ishmael, now a teenager. The God who sees again. In the desert, the water ran out. Hagar placed the boy under a bush and moved away, crying, "I cannot watch the boy die." She had already lost everything. Now she would also lose her son. But there, in the most desperate moment, God heard the boy's cry. God heard the boy crying. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying." And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. Once again, El Roi was seeing. Once again, he provided. Once again, he did not abandon the rejected one. God was with the boy. He grew up, lived in the desert, and became an archer. Ishmael lived in the desert of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from Egypt. God fulfilled his promise to Hagar and Ishmael as well. The lessons of a complicated story. This is not a pretty story. It's a real story, full of human errors and divine grace. Sarah teaches us that waiting can hurt so much that we try to take control. That impatience can create problems that will last for generations. But also that God is faithful even when we fail. Abraham teaches us that even men of faith make mistakes. That sometimes we agree to plans that are not God's because we're tired. But that God doesn't give up on us because of that. Hagar teaches us that God sees the invisible. That he hears the cry of the forgotten. that even when we are used and discarded by others, God calls us by name. And all of them teach us that God's timing is different from ours. That His promises are always fulfilled, but rarely on our schedule. Maybe you've been waiting so long that you're thinking about helping God. Maybe you've created your own Ishmael when God promised an Isaac. Or maybe you're like Hagar. Used, discarded, invisible. Sitting in the desert of life crying, thinking that nobody cares. This story has a message for you. For those who wait, don't give up on God's promise. Your plan Bs will always create complications. But His faithfulness remains. For those who have been rejected, God sees you. He knows you by name. You are not invisible to Him. He is opening your eyes to the well of water you can't see. For all of us, the God of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar is still El Roy, the God who sees. He sees your pain. He sees your waiting. He sees your loneliness. And He continues to be faithful. Thousands of years later, the Apostle Paul would write about this story. But the son by the slave woman was born according to the flesh, the son by the free woman through promise. What was born from human impatience was temporary. What was born from God's promise was eternal. And you? Are you patiently waiting for God's promise? Or are you creating your own plan? Remember, El Roy is watching. And what He promised, He will fulfill. In His time. In His way. For His glory. If this story touched your heart, leave your like. Share it with someone who is tired of waiting or who feels invisible. Subscribe to the channel for more Bible stories that transform lives. Turn on notifications. In the comments, tell me, did you identify more with Sarah, Abraham, or Hagar? And why? May El Roy, the God who sees you, bless your life. Until the next video. You are the God who sees me. Genesis 16 verse 13.